they disrespected you, and every cell in your body screamed to react, to shout back, to defend your name, to remind them who you are. But you didn't. You stayed silent. Not because you were weak, not because you didn't have words, but because silence is a language only the wise speak fluently. Silence after disrespect isn't about giving up. It's about growing up. It's a sign that your peace has become more important than proving a point. That's power most people will never understand, because the truth is some of the most profound statements are made in complete silence. That silence, that's you choosing maturity over reaction, composure over chaos. When someone disrespects you, they want a show, they want noise, they want a reaction to feed their fragile ego. But what happens when you give them nothing? What happens when your calm is louder than their chaos? They lose power instantly. Let's be real. Your silence makes them uncomfortable. It forces them to sit with what they've done. Without your reaction to deflect it, it's easy to blame someone when they scream back. It's harder to ignore the mirror your silence holds up. Silence isn't weakness, it's a strategy, a weapon, and it stings more than any insult you could ever throw back. Silence is often misinterpreted. In a world that glorifies quick comebacks, sharp wit, and public confrontation, remaining silent is seen by many as a sign of weakness or submission. But the truth is, silence is one of the most powerful responses you can offer, especially after being disrespected. It is not about letting people walk over you, nor is it about ignoring your feelings. It's about choosing your battles with wisdom and knowing that your energy is too valuable to waste on people who thrive on chaos. When you disrespects you, the immediate temptation is to respond, to defend your name, to retaliate with words, to make them feel what they made you feel. That knee-jerk reaction is natural, but natural doesn't always mean necessary. Reacting emotionally to every offense only shows how easily others can control your state of mind. And when you respond with the same level of disrespect, you bring yourself down to their level. You begin playing the same game they're playing, a game where there are no real winners, only noise, damage, and regrets. But choosing silence, that's discipline. That's control. That's the language of someone who doesn't need to prove their strength through volume. It's the mindset of someone who has evolved beyond the need for emotional validation through confrontation. Silence doesn't mean you didn't hear what was said. It means you heard it, you understood it, and you made a conscious choice not to engage. You're not ignoring them because you don't know what to say. You're not saying anything because you know that not everything deserves a response. It takes more strength to walk away than it does to stand and fight. Anybody can react. Anybody can yell back. But only the strong have the self-control to pause, breathe, and let their silence speak for them. It is far easier to lash out than it is to hold your peace. It's easier to explode than to stay calm. But strength isn't always shown through action. It's often found in restraint. The person who controls their response controls the room. The one who doesn't react becomes the one who holds the power. Silence also signals maturity. When you're truly confident in yourself, you don't need to defend every insult. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are already committed to misunderstanding you. You know who you are, and no one's words can take that away from you. That self-assurance is what makes your silence so powerful. People can sense it. They feel it when they try to provoke you and fail. They hear it in the quiet when you choose not to respond. They recognize that they didn't shake you, and that unsettles them more than any words you could have said. Silence after disrespect often exposes more about the offender than about the victim. When you don't react, their behavior becomes the center of attention, their character, their bitterness, their pettiness, it all gets exposed when you're not there to deflect the focus. Your silence allows their behavior to echo louder. People start to notice who the real problem is. Your restraint becomes a mirror reflecting their insecurity and immaturity back at them. In many ways, silence becomes a form of elevation. It's a sign that you no longer operate in the realm of petty arguments or shallow disputes. You've moved past that level of engagement. You realize that not every insult requires a response, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep walking. It's a statement that says, you can say what you want, but you will never get access to my peace. And that is where true power lies, not in the ability to destroy someone with words, but in the ability to remain unaffected by theirs. When you master the art of silence, especially in moments of disrespect, you gain control not just over the situation, but over yourself. You stop being a puppet to others' triggers and start living from a place of inner strength. That's not weakness. That's power. That's what makes silence stronger than noise and restraint greater than reaction. Disrespect often appears in our lives not just as an act of rudeness, but as a calculated attempt to disrupt our inner peace. It's rarely random. Many times it's designed to provoke, to test, and to extract a reaction. Whether it's a sly comment, dismissive gesture, or outright hostility, the goal is often the same: to draw you into an emotional exchange, to get under your skin, to make you lose your composure. What most people don't realize is that disrespect is not always about you. It's more about them seeking control over your emotional state. It's a direct test of your energy. Your energy is your most valuable currency. It's what drives your decisions, fuels your mindset, and sustains your peace. And when someone disrespects you, what they're really doing is attempting to hijack that energy. They want your attention. They want your emotional investment. They want to feel powerful by making you feel small. The moment you engage, the moment you respond in anger, irritation, or frustration, you've handed them what they were after all along: your power. Think about how often people use subtle forms of disrespect to bait you. A sarcastic tone in a meeting, an unnecessary jab during a casual conversation, a public dismissal of your value. These aren't random acts. They are tests of whether you'll guard your energy or give it away for free. Because the truth is, most people who consistently disrespect others are not strong themselves. They lack inner control. They lack confidence. So they feed off the energy of those who do. They get a thrill from seeing someone who is calm and composed suddenly become reactive and defensive. It gives them a sense of significance, a temporary high. It validates their fragile sense of worth. But when you stay silent, when you remain unfazed, you deny them that satisfaction. You pass the test. You protect your energy. You send a clear message without saying a word. I choose not to play your game. That choice disarms them. It takes away their power. Because what can someone do with your silence? They can't argue with it. They can't twist it. They can't use it against you. It leaves them alone with their own actions and their own discomfort. Turns the spotlight back on them. The more you grow in emotional maturity, the more you understand the value of protecting your energy. You realize not everyone deserves a response. Not every insult is worth addressing. Not every battle is worth fighting. When you give in to every moment of disrespect, you stretch yourself thin. You scatter your energy across meaningless exchanges. You allow other people to dictate your emotional state. And over time, you start living in reaction mode, always on edge, always responding, always drained. But the person who can stand in the presence of disrespect and choose silence is a person who has full control over their energy. They don't react to noise because they're focused on their direction. They don't get pulled into emotional quicksand because they know their mission. Their purpose is louder than any insult. Their vision is stronger than any provocation. They don't give free rent in their mind to people who haven't earned their respect. This is not about pretending disrespect doesn't hurt. It does. It stings. It can shake your confidence and challenge your self-worth. But responding emotionally doesn't make it better. It often makes it worse, because in reacting, you give them validation. You confirm that they've gotten to you, that they've disrupted your state of being. And that's what they wanted. Silence, on the other hand, shows that their efforts failed, that you saw the attempt and chose not to let it affect your path. Disrespect is a test of your composure, your priorities, and your energy. And every time you stay silent, every time you walk away, every time you choose peace over reaction, you pass that test. You protect what matters most: your mental clarity, your emotional balance, and your personal power. You refuse to let others drain you of the energy you need for your goals, your growth, and your future. And that refusal, expressed through silence, is one of the most powerful choices you can make. Every time you react to someone's disrespect, you're handing over control of your emotions. It might seem like standing up for yourself in the heat of the moment, but more often than not, it's a transaction where you give away your power in exchange for temporary emotional relief. The moment you let someone else dictate your reaction, you allow them to influence your inner world. You allow them to set the emotional tone, and once you're caught in that loop, you're no longer operating from a place of strength, you're operating from a place of defense. Disrespect is a trap, and the bait is your ego. It tempts you to react, to prove a point, to reclaim your pride. But that reaction, that split-second decision to lash out, argue, or even justify yourself is exactly what gives the other person the upper hand. They've pulled you into their emotional storm. They've taken you off course and into a space that's dictated by their terms. That's the moment you've lost control, not because you didn't stand up for yourself, but because you stood up in a way that cost you your peace. Control isn't about dominance. It's about self-possession. It's about being so deeply rooted in who you are that no insult, no jab, no passive-aggressive comment can shake you out of your core. When you own your responses, you own your life. But when you allow someone else to spark your anger or push you into a reactive state, you become a puppet to their behavior. You start moving to their rhythm instead of your own. That's not strength. That's not victory. That's emotional surrender. The strongest people in the room aren't the loudest. They're not the ones clapping back or demanding attention. They're the ones who can observe disrespect and remain still, unbothered, unaffected. Not because they're weak, but because they've trained themselves not to give others the satisfaction of controlling their emotional state. They've realized that every time they react, they're giving away a piece of their power. And over time, those little pieces add up. They chip away at your energy, your focus, your emotional clarity. Imagine you're walking down a path toward your goals, your peace, your personal growth. Along the way, people throw stones of disrespect, small ones, big ones, some intentional, some not. Now, every time you stop to pick up a stone and throw it back, you're stopping your progress. You're interrupting your momentum. And worst of all, you're reacting to a distraction instead of focusing on your direction. But if you keep walking, if you let those stones fall and stay behind you, you remain in control. You don't let detours dictate your destination. People will always test you. That's the reality of life. There will always be someone who wants to get under your skin, someone who thrives on confrontation, someone who needs to feel powerful by making you feel small. But the real test isn't about them. It's about you. How you respond determines the level of control you have over your life. If you need to react every time someone disrespects you, you're giving everyone else the keys to your peace. You're telling the world, if you push me, I will fall. But when you stay grounded, when you choose not to react, you send a different message. I choose how I respond. I hold the keys. That choice is freedom. It's a kind of emotional liberation that can't be taken away by someone's bad attitude or toxic behavior. It's the ability to stay calm in the storm, not because the storm isn't real, but because you've built your foundation on something deeper than ego. That's what real power looks like. Not controlling others, but mastering yourself. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. You start recognizing that not everything needs a reaction. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every confrontation is worth your time. Reaction is often the most expensive choice you can make emotionally. It might feel satisfying for a moment, but it drains you long term. It pulls you into cycles of conflict and emotional exhaustion. But choosing silence, choosing not to react, choosing peace, those are the choices that build real control. They reinforce your self-worth. They remind you that you are not at the mercy of other people's behavior. You are in control of you, always. Silence is not a lack of response. It is a calculated decision to rise above unnecessary drama. When someone disrespects you, there's a natural desire to correct them, to make them understand how wrong they were, to restore your dignity through confrontation. But what often goes unnoticed is how powerful it is to let someone reveal their own character without interference. When you stay silent after being disrespected, you shift the attention away from yourself and shine a harsh light on the behavior of the person causing the chaos. Without your reaction to distract from what they did, their actions echo louder, stand out more clearly, and expose their true nature. People are often blind to their own behavior until they are forced to sit in the silence of their actions. Your reaction gives them something to lean on, something to argue with, to twist, to blame. But when there's no reply, they're left with nothing but their own words and actions. That silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their intentions, their bitterness, and their immaturity. They may laugh in the moment, thinking your silence is surrender, but deep down, they're confronted with the reality that they didn't get to you, that their behavior stands alone now, naked and exposed with no counterattack to justify it. You see this dynamic play out in relationships, workplaces, and even casual interactions. Someone throws out a comment designed to sting, and they pause, waiting for your reaction. When you give them nothing, they're left in an awkward silence that makes them question themselves. That moment of silence forces them to see how uncalled for or cruel they were. It disrupts their sense of control because they expected to steer the emotional tone, and now they've lost the wheel. They might smirk to save face, but inside they're scrambling to make sense of the quiet strength you just showed. The power of silence lies in the fact that it can't be manipulated. Words can be twisted, responses can be used against you, but silence gives them nothing to work with. It becomes their own echo chamber, amplifying the reality of their disrespect. People reveal more about themselves in how they treat others than in what they say about themselves. And when there's no noise to compete with, their behavior becomes undeniable. That's why your silence is often more damaging to them than anything you could have said. It exposes their insecurities, their intentions, and their weaknesses. Silence also disrupts the attention they were trying to steal. Disrespect often comes from people who crave a reaction, who want the spotlight, who want to feed their ego by knocking someone else down. When you don't react, you take that power away. You refuse to give them the stage. Instead of engaging in a battle that elevates their importance in your life, you choose to withdraw your energy entirely. That refusal is not only a rejection of their disrespect, it's a refusal to entertain their presence in your emotional world. And the more you practice this, the more you realize how unnecessary those confrontations really are. Your silence becomes your boundary. It's the line in the sand that says, you don't get to pull me into your chaos. It creates space between you and the negativity, space where you remain calm, composed, and in control. It's not a retreat. It's a strategy. It's emotional intelligence in action. It's recognizing that not every act of disrespect deserves the dignity of your response. Because in that silence, you maintain your dignity. You keep your energy intact. And you force the other person to sit with the discomfort of what they've done without the relief of deflection. This kind of silence is not passive. It's not weakness or avoidance. It's restraint. It's power under control. It says you've evolved past the need for petty confrontations. It says you see the bigger picture. You understand that some things are better left unanswered because your growth, your peace, and your future are worth more than winning a temporary argument. You're no longer operating on the same level as someone who finds joy in disrespect. You're operating on a level where silence does more damage than words ever could because it leaves them alone with themselves. And that, more often than not, is the loudest message of all. The moment you walk away from someone who disrespects you, you make one of the boldest declarations possible. You show that your peace is worth more than the argument. You prove that you've reached a level of self-awareness where you no longer allow temporary emotions to steer you into permanent consequences. There's a deep, unshakable strength in being able to walk away quietly, not storming out, not making a dramatic exit, but simply choosing not to waste your energy where it's not respected. That's not weakness. That's power that comes from discipline, and few people possess it. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't hear the insult. It doesn't mean you're unaware of the disrespect. It means you've decided not to give it the gift of your attention. Because every second you spend defending yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you is a second stolen from your purpose. And when you walk away in silence, you're not running from the situation, you're rising above it, and you're saying, this isn't worthy of my spirit. That choice echoes louder than any comeback ever could. Because it tells everyone watching that you hold yourself to a higher standard, that you value your peace over performance. Some people thrive off confrontation. They wait for you to explode. They want the energy exchange. They crave the drama. They feed off your reaction like parasites, not because they want resolution, but because your reaction validates their existence. The angrier you get, the more attention they gain. The more emotional you become, the more powerful they feel. It's not about the content of your response. It's about the fact that you responded, that you gave them what they wanted, control over your mood. But when you walk away, when you don't feed the fire, you leave them empty-handed. And that emptiness often speaks louder than anything you could have said. You have to understand that not every battle deserves your presence. Not every person deserves the privilege of your response. Walking away isn't a lack of courage. It's the refusal to lower yourself to the level of someone who has no control over their own behavior. Anyone can shout back. Anyone can argue, but it takes self-control to protect your energy, to guard your emotions, to walk away from something that tries to diminish your worth, because disrespect is an invitation to lose yourself. It's a test to see if you'll abandon your peace for the sake of proving a point. And when you stay, when you engage, you're often saying, this matters more than my mental clarity, but it never does. Peace isn't found in the last word. It's found in walking away before things escalate, in choosing yourself instead of choosing conflict, in letting others have their opinion, their attitude, their moment, without letting it touch your inner world. That kind of peace comes with maturity. It comes with learning that silence can be a wall, a shield, a boundary. And walking away is the ultimate form of that boundary. It's you saying, you don't get access to my energy anymore. That's when you shift the dynamic. That's when you show you've grown. That's when you rise. The beautiful thing about walking away is that it teaches others how to treat you. It sends a silent but powerful message. If you cross this line, you lose access. People will begin to understand that you're not someone who sticks around to entertain disrespect. You're not someone who needs to prove yourself to everyone. You're not someone who allows toxic behavior just to keep the peace. No, your peace is non-negotiable, and you will walk away to protect it every single time. That message is unspoken, but it resonates deeply because people respect what you tolerate. And when you tolerate nothing less than respect, they adjust. In a world full of reactions, your silence stands out. In a world addicted to drama, your quiet exit shocks the system. Because people are conditioned to expect conflict when they disrespect you. They expect you to fight back, to explain, to shout. But when you calmly walk away, you break the cycle. You rewrite the narrative. You remove their ability to manipulate your emotions. And that calm, that stillness, that unbothered energy, that's what real power looks like. That's the kind of power that comes from deep internal work, from knowing your worth so well that you'd rather walk alone in peace than stay in chaos surrounded by noise. The people who truly respect you will never put you in a position where you feel disrespected. That's a truth many people learn the hard way, often after giving too many chances, explaining their pain too many times, and waiting for change that never comes. Respect is not something you should ever have to beg for, prove yourself worthy of, or constantly fight to maintain. It is something freely given by those who see your value, not something earned through tolerating mistreatment. When someone truly respects you, they become aware of how their words and actions affect you, and they avoid anything that would make you feel small, unseen, or dismissed. You can always tell who values you by the way they handle your boundaries. Disrespect often comes in the form of subtle violations, interrupting you, mocking you in the name of humor, downplaying your feelings, or ignoring your voice. When someone consistently crosses your boundaries, even after you've expressed discomfort, what they're really saying is, my comfort is more important than your dignity. But when someone respects you, they adjust. They listen when you speak. They pause before they act. And they care about how their choices make you feel. You never have to scream to be heard, never have to shrink to keep the peace, never have to question your worth in their presence. It's important to stop romanticizing the idea of loyalty to people who disrespect you. Being the bigger person doesn't mean staying silent while someone chips away at your self-esteem. It doesn't mean enduring behavior that leaves you emotionally drained just to avoid conflict. There is nothing noble about staying where you are not valued. True loyalty begins with being loyal to yourself. Your worth, your peace, your emotional health. And sometimes that means walking away from people who cannot see you clearly, no matter how long you've known them or how much you've invested in the relationship. Disrespect can come dressed in politeness. It can hide in sarcasm, in fake smiles, in backhanded compliments, but your soul knows the truth. You feel it in the discomfort in your gut, in the silence that follows after a dismissive comment, in the way you have to mentally prepare to be around certain people. That discomfort is your intuition speaking, telling you this is not love, this is not respect, this is not where you're meant to be. And you do yourself a disservice every time you silence that voice just to keep someone else comfortable. You don't have to hate someone to walk away from them. You don't need a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is silently step back from people who continually show you that their respect for you is conditional. Maybe it's only present when things are easy, when you agree with them, or when they need something from you. But real respect is unconditional. It remains even when you disagree, even when you say no, even when you set a boundary. If someone disappears or turns cold the moment you assert yourself, they were never respecting you. They were controlling you. There is a difference between forgiveness and tolerance. You can forgive someone for the way they disrespected you and still decide that they no longer deserve a seat at your table. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It releases the weight of resentment. But tolerance is a gift you give to others, and not everyone deserves it. Tolerating disrespect over and over again doesn't make you kind. It makes you complicit in your own pain. And at some point, you have to draw the line, not just for them, but for yourself, to say, I deserve more than this. I will not allow this to continue. People who truly respect you won't test how much pain you'll endure before you finally leave. They won't weaponize your love or your patience. They won't expect you to sacrifice your self-worth to maintain the connection. In fact, the people who genuinely care about you will check themselves before they even come close to crossing a line. They'll be mindful, not because you asked them to be, but because they care about your heart. You won't need to constantly explain yourself. You won't need to walk on eggshells. You'll simply feel safe, honored, and seen. That's how you know the difference between respect and manipulation dressed up as affection. When you stay silent after disrespect, you give yourself the rare and powerful opportunity to reflect before reacting. Most people live in reaction mode. Something happens and they respond instantly, often out of emotion rather than clarity. But silence is a buffer between the trigger and the response. It's a sacred space where you reclaim control over how you handle your emotions. Instead of reacting with anger, sarcasm, or pain, silence allows you to pause and think, what is really going on here? What's the deeper motive behind their words? Is this even worth my energy? That pause, created by silence, can be the difference between escalating a situation or rising above it with dignity. Reflection is not weakness, it's wisdom. In the silence, you begin to understand your own emotional patterns. You realize whether the disrespect was intentional or a misunderstanding, whether it came from someone lashing out because of their own insecurities or simply because they have no idea how to treat people. You start to see that not everything thrown at you requires your full emotional investment. Some things are meant to be observed, learned from, and quietly let go. In that space of silence, you separate the noise from the message. You become a student of behavior rather than a participant in drama. You start making choices that are in alignment with your peace instead of your pride. The greatest strength often lies in doing nothing, at least not immediately, because in that nothingness, in that moment of restraint, you're doing something far more powerful than retaliating. You're watching, you're studying, you're evaluating whether this person or situation deserves your energy. And more importantly, you're reconnecting with your own truth. You begin to ask yourself better questions. Does responding to this align with the person I'm trying to become? Am I reacting to prove something, or am I protecting my peace? These questions can only rise to the surface when you allow silence to interrupt the instinct to fight back. Silence gives you emotional distance. When you react instantly, you're still entangled in the emotion, still caught in the heat of the moment. But silence creates space between you and the insult, between you and the attacker. It's in that space that clarity is born. You gain perspective on what's really at stake. You realize that most disrespectful people are dealing with internal battles that have nothing to do with you. Maybe they feel threatened by your presence. Maybe they're insecure about their own worth. Maybe they lash out to feel powerful for a brief moment. But that's their storm, not yours. Silence gives you the awareness to not get soaked in someone else's rain. Another benefit of silent reflection is self-respect. When you remain silent in the face of disrespect, you're not showing submission. You're showing that your emotions are not available for manipulation. You're communicating that you value your internal peace more than external validation. There's a calm confidence that comes with knowing you don't owe anyone a reaction. You begin to trust your ability to handle conflict without losing yourself in it. You start to walk through life more grounded, more centered, and far less reactive. And that's a rare kind of power that people notice, even if they never say it out loud. It's also in silence that you begin to understand your worth in new ways. You recognize that someone else's inability to treat you right has nothing to do with your value. Their disrespect doesn't define you, it defines them. And your silence refuses to let their behavior rewrite your self-image. You don't need to argue to defend your dignity. You don't need to explain your worth to someone who already decided to overlook it. In the quiet, you affirm yourself. You remind yourself who you are. You remind yourself what you deserve. And when you do choose to speak again, it comes from a place of strength, not woundedness. Silence after disrespect is not about ignoring the problem. It's about giving yourself time to choose the wisest way to deal with it. It's about refusing to be dragged into someone else's chaos. It's about showing up for yourself in a way that words often fail to do. That moment of reflection is where real maturity is born. It's where growth happens. It's where you shift from being controlled by emotions to becoming the master of them. And while it might not feel satisfying in the moment, that inner control is what builds long-term peace, emotional resilience, and unshakable self-respect. Silence, after being disrespected, sends a message that is louder and more piercing than any angry words ever could. It speaks to a level of emotional maturity that most people never attain. When someone tries to provoke you, they expect a reaction. They want your anger, your frustration, your need to explain or defend yourself. They're ready for a verbal battle, and they want you to step into the ring with them. But when you choose silence, you don't just remove yourself from the argument, you remove their power. You take the wind out of their sails by giving them nothing to push against. Your silence becomes your shield, and it reflects your refusal to lower your standards just to meet someone else at their level of chaos. It's a bold declaration that you will not be manipulated, baited, or dragged into emotional games. This respect thrives on engagement. The moment you engage with someone who has no intention of understanding you or treating you with dignity, you lose more than just the argument. You lose time, peace, and control over your own energy. When you remain silent, it doesn't mean you didn't notice. It doesn't mean you're afraid. It means you've decided that your self-respect is worth more than the need to be right or to prove a point. That kind of restraint shows a deep sense of discipline. It shows that you're not reactive, you're intentional. You don't speak just to be heard. You speak when it's meaningful, when it adds value, not when it fuels conflict. There is a rare kind of power in not giving people what they expect. When someone disrespects you, they're often trying to assert dominance or control. They want to disturb your peace because they're disturbed themselves. They want to make you feel small because that makes them feel bigger. But when you meet that energy with silence, you send a message they didn't see coming. You show that you cannot be shaken by small minds or petty provocations. You rise above without ever needing to say a word. That kind of strength unnerves people who are used to pulling others into their emotional chaos. It unsettles them because they realize they can't touch you where it really matters, your inner peace. When you remain silent, you maintain your power. You hold on to your emotional energy instead of letting someone else drain it. You protect your mental space instead of filling it with the residue of someone else's disrespect. You create distance between yourself and the toxicity, and in that distance, you find clarity. You begin to understand that not everything that demands your attention deserves it. Some comments are better left unanswered. Some people are better left unheard. And sometimes silence is the only language that truly speaks the depth of your self-control and your unshakable confidence. There's something incredibly dignified about not reacting. It's not about being passive. It's about being strategic. You're choosing to respond with action rather than words. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing the disrespectful person to face their own behavior without the distraction of your response. It forces them to sit with what they said, to feel the emptiness where your reaction should have been. And often that silence hits harder than any argument ever could. It shows that you've mastered the ability to protect your peace without needing to make noise about it. That's when you shift the dynamic completely. You become untouchable. The beauty of silence is that it's always in your control. No one can take it from you, and no one can manipulate it. When you speak, your words can be twisted, used against you, misinterpreted, but silence is pure. It can't be misquoted. It doesn't leave room for misunderstanding. It speaks volumes without ever being loud. It says, I don't need to lower myself to your level to prove my worth. It says, your opinion of me is not my responsibility. It says, I know who I am, and that is enough. That's the kind of message that lingers long after the moment has passed. That's the kind of presence that demands respect without ever asking for it. In choosing silence, you teach people how to treat you. You set a boundary without ever needing to explain it. You make it clear that if they want access to your energy, your presence, your voice, they'll have to come with respect. And if they don't, you won't fight them. You'll simply disappear from the conversation. You won't entertain drama. You'll outgrow it. You won't scream for attention. You'll command it through your discipline. That's how silence becomes power. That's how it protects you. That's how it transforms you from someone who reacts to someone who rules their own world with wisdom, calm, and grace. When you choose to stay silent after experiencing disrespect, you are exercising the ultimate form of self-control and power. It is a silent refusal to let someone else's negativity dictate your emotional state or your actions. In a world that often demands immediate reactions, quick retorts, and loud defenses, silence becomes a revolutionary act. It shows that you are not enslaved by the need to prove yourself or to engage in battles that only drain your energy. Instead, you demonstrate that your peace and dignity are far more valuable than momentary satisfaction gained from responding impulsively. This choice reflects a deep understanding of your worth and a commitment to maintaining your emotional sovereignty. One of the most profound benefits of silence is the way it protects your emotional energy. Every time you engage with disrespect, you pour a part of yourself into that exchange, your time, your emotions, your mental bandwidth. This investment often goes unrewarded because the disrespectful person is rarely interested in resolution or understanding. Their goal is to provoke, to dominate, or simply to vent their own frustrations. By choosing silence, you refuse to participate in this draining cycle. You conserve your energy for people and situations that truly matter, preserving your mental and emotional health from unnecessary harm. Silence forces the disrespectful party to confront themselves. When you refuse to engage, you deny them the reaction they crave. This lack of response can be disarming. It strips away the drama and leaves them with only their words and actions to face. Without the fuel of your anger or rebuttal, their disrespect loses its power and significance. Sometimes silence can lead to self-reflection on their part, creating an opportunity for growth or at least awareness. Other times, it simply protects you from further entanglement in toxicity. Either way, your silence serves a purpose beyond what words could achieve. It is a powerful boundary in action. Silence also gives you the space to process your emotions privately and thoughtfully. Immediate reactions are often impulsive and driven by hurt or anger, which can lead to regret later. But when you remain silent, you create a pause that allows you to assess the situation more objectively. You can consider the context, the person's possible motivations, and the best course of action moving forward. This reflective space helps you respond not out of reaction, but out of wisdom and intention. It enables you to protect your integrity while also making decisions that serve your long-term well-being. Choosing silence after disrespect also strengthens your emotional resilience. It is a practice of mastering your internal world, refusing to let external negativity penetrate your sense of self. Every time you resist the urge to react, you build a stronger foundation of self-control and confidence. You learn that your value is not tied to other people's opinions or actions. You begin to understand that you are the ultimate guardian of your peace. This resilience is a shield against future attacks. It becomes a habit of rising above rather than getting dragged down. Over time, you become less vulnerable to being hurt by disrespect because you have trained yourself to hold space for your emotions without being controlled by them. Silence communicates a message of strength and maturity that words often cannot. In moments of conflict, people frequently resort to shouting, blaming, or defensive speech. But silence speaks volumes without saying anything at all. It conveys that you are composed, unshaken, and confident in your self-worth. It shows that you do not need to justify yourself or your feelings to anyone who disrespects you. This quiet strength often commands more respect than any argument or confrontation ever could. Others begin to recognize that you are someone who does not tolerate disrespect, not through confrontation, but through calm dignity. Importantly, silence does not mean you accept or condone disrespect. It is not passive submission. Instead, it is a strategic choice to protect yourself while maintaining your integrity. It allows you to set clear boundaries without escalating conflict. In some cases, silence can be followed by a thoughtful and assertive conversation when you are ready and when it serves your purpose. But even if you never choose to speak up, your silence in the face of disrespect is a powerful form of resistance. It is a refusal to give your energy to negativity and a commitment to prioritize your own peace. In choosing silence, you also create a space for healing. Disrespect wounds the spirit, and it takes time to recover from such pain. Immediate reactions often prolong the hurt or deepen conflict. Silence, on the other hand, allows your wounds to begin to close without interference. It gives you the opportunity to regain your composure and to rebuild your sense of self-worth away from the influence of others' harmful words or acts. This healing process is vital because it restores your ability to engage with the world from a place of strength rather than vulnerability. Silence after disrespect is a declaration of self-respect and emotional mastery. It is a way of saying, I will not let your words define me or disturb my peace. It is an act of courage that requires patience, discipline, and confidence. In a culture that often values loudness over wisdom, silence becomes a profound tool for maintaining dignity. It empowers you to rise above the noise and to protect the sanctity of your inner world. Through silence, you affirm your value and demonstrate that true strength lies not in reacting, but in choosing when and how to respond thoughtfully. Choosing silence after being disrespected is a powerful act of self-empowerment that transforms your life and relationships in ways you may not immediately see. It is more than just withholding words. It's a deliberate strategy that signals self-respect, strength, and clarity. When you resist the urge to react impulsively to disrespect, you are consciously deciding to control the narrative of your life rather than letting others write it for you. This decision creates a ripple effect that influences how people perceive you, how you feel about yourself, and how you navigate future conflicts. By staying silent, you are not giving up your voice. You are choosing the right time, place, and manner to use it, which makes your words more impactful when you finally do speak. The essence of this choice lies in emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions while also recognizing and influencing the emotions of others. When you stay silent after disrespect, you're exercising this skill at its highest level. Instead of reacting out of anger or hurt, you pause and assess the situation, your feelings, and the potential consequences of any response. This pause allows you to act with intention rather than impulse. It shows you have the maturity to regulate your emotions and the wisdom to know that not every battle is worth fighting. This kind of self-control not only protects you from unnecessary pain, but also preserves your dignity in the eyes of others. Remaining silent also reframes power dynamics. Often, when someone disrespects you, they're attempting to assert power over you, to unsettle your confidence, or to provoke a reaction that diminishes your authority. When you refuse to take the bait and instead respond with silence, you disrupt their plan. Your silence becomes a form of resistance. It denies them the satisfaction of seeing you upset or react. This can shift the balance of power back in your favor, showing that your sense of self is not dependent on their approval or behavior. In many ways, silence is the strongest answer because it does not give anyone the leverage to escalate the situation or manipulate your emotions. Choosing silence also cultivates inner peace. When you engage with disrespect through confrontation, you often feed the negativity, increasing stress and emotional turmoil. Silence, on the other hand, allows you to protect your mental space. It gives you the chance to process your feelings without being overwhelmed by the heat of the moment. This mental clarity helps you make better decisions and maintain emotional balance. Over time, practicing silence as a response builds resilience. You become less reactive, more grounded, and better able to navigate life's challenges without losing your center. This inner peace is a precious resource. It enhances your well-being and improves your relationships because you interact with others from a place of calm rather than conflict. Additionally, silence encourages self-reflection. In the quiet that follows disrespect, you have the opportunity to look inward and evaluate your own boundaries and values. You begin to ask yourself important questions. Why did this affect me? What can I learn from this experience? How do I want to respond moving forward? This process deepens your self-awareness and helps you grow emotionally. It moves you away from knee-jerk reactions toward thoughtful responses. By understanding your triggers and limits, you empower yourself to set clearer boundaries and communicate more effectively when you do choose to speak. Silence also impacts how others perceive you. People are often surprised by someone who does not react to disrespect in the expected way. Instead of engaging in a fight or argument, you demonstrate strength through restraint. This can earn you respect, even from those who initially intended to provoke you. They see that you are not easily shaken, that your self-worth is stable, and that you do not depend on external validation. This perception can discourage future attempts at disrespect because it signals that you are not a target for manipulation or emotional games. Silence thus becomes a boundary-setting tool, teaching others how to treat you without the need for harsh words or confrontations. Silence can provide strategic advantage in difficult situations. In conflicts, especially those involving emotional or personal attacks, immediate responses often escalate tensions and cloud judgment. By staying silent, you buy yourself time to gather information, understand the context, and plan your next steps carefully. This strategic patience can lead to more constructive outcomes, whether that means addressing the issue calmly later, seeking support, or deciding to disengage altogether. Silence is not avoidance. It's a tactical choice that preserves your options and prevents regretful decisions made in the heat of the moment. Choosing silence also affirms your control over your narrative. When disrespected, it's easy to feel as if the other person is rewriting your story, defining you by their words or actions. But by not reacting immediately, you reclaim your narrative power. You decide how and when to respond, if at all, on your own terms. This autonomy is deeply empowering. It allows you to maintain your identity and integrity despite external challenges. Your silence becomes a way to protect your story from being hijacked by negativity or misunderstanding. Silence fosters personal growth. Each time you choose it, you reinforce habits of patience, resilience, and emotional intelligence. These qualities build character and help you navigate life's complexities with grace. You learn that strength is not measured by volume or aggression, but by your ability to maintain calm and clarity amid chaos. Over time, this approach leads to more meaningful interactions, healthier relationships, and a stronger sense of self. Silence after disrespect is not just a reaction, it is a profound tool for transformation, empowerment, and peace. People will ask why you didn't respond, why you didn't defend yourself, why you chose to walk away. Let them wonder. Your silence needs no explanation. You don't owe anyone a reaction just because they're loud. You don't owe anyone your peace just because they're disrespectful. Silence is your boundary. It's the line that says, I don't argue with disrespect. I don't entertain drama. I protect my energy. You're not silent because you're scared. You're silent because you're focused, because you're powerful, because you've learned that not everything deserves your attention. They disrespected you, you stayed silent, and in doing so, you showed the world something rare. Real power whispers. It doesn't scream. And in that whisper, you proved everything you needed to prove. Without ever saying a word,